Style. I want to go through some of Matthew's style of writing, and just do this briefly because I don't think this is so significant, but it's just Matthew's fondness for repetition. Okay? Truly, truly, I say unto you, says that in chapter 5, verse 18, and it occurs about 31 times. Okay? Truly, truly, I say unto you. You have heard it said of old, but I say unto you. You remember reading that in the Sermon on the Mount several times. You have heard it said, but I say unto you. That kind of thing. So Matthew seems to like to repeat things. Truly, truly, I say unto you. Various formulas, you have heard it said. So he uses these formulas. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are you. So you got, when you look at the Sermon on the Mount, it's blessed are the Beatitudes, all lined up there in a row, starting with the word for the Hebrew word ashereh, or the Greek word makaria. Parallelism. Matthew, because he's Jewish, a lot of Hebrew poetry and is written in parallelism, and so a lot of times you've got heaven and earth. And he'll say, heaven and earth, the law and the prophets, the scribes and the Pharisees. And so he'll use these repetitions and things. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Can you see the parallelism there? My yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's saying the same thing twice. It's a poetic way of saying it. To the Jewish mind, this idea of parallelism. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Those kind of things. So, okay. Now, 5 discourses, style of Matthew. Matthew gives you the teachings of Jesus in these 5 great discourses. We said the 5 great discourses. People have paralleled those to the Pentateuch or the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the first 5 books, Pentateuch of the Bible. So the 5 discourses, the Sermon on the Mount, the Olivet Discourse, the Sending of the 12, the Parables of the Kingdom, and the teachings on the church in Matthew chapter 18. So that's part of Matthew's style. There's over 40 quotes from the Old Testament. Again, that's part of his style. Matthew fronts, and we said because probably the Jewish connection, that's what he does. Now, vocabulary, various things there in terms of vocabulary. Then he uses quite a bit. Hine, behold, various things. The kingdom of heaven, that's typical of Matthew. And now, what I want to do is I want to talk about this thing with hyperbole. Matthew uses, it seems to me, hyperbole. And it seems to me that people don't understand how do you interpret hyperbole. A hyperbolic statement, how do you interpret it? And let me just tell you something that I had a former person I used to teach in the same institution as this person, and they always said all in the Bible, all always means all, and that's all that all means. All always means all. Now, when you say something always means one thing, I just want to tell you, your gut should tell you that's not right. We use words in so many different ways that one word doesn't always mean one thing, okay? All doesn't always mean all. So, for example, we just use that thing with brothers and sisters. We use brothers and sisters. Well, you use it in your family as brothers and sisters. And then you go to church and people greet each other as brothers and sisters and things. So it's obviously very different in terms of how you conceptualize that and stuff. And so what I'm saying is that be careful about this notion. Now, what is a hyperbole and how does this work? In Matthew chapter 3, verse 5, it says, all Jerusalem went out to see John the Baptist. All Jerusalem went out to see John the Baptist. Well, when it says all there, does it mean every last person in Jerusalem went out to see John the Baptist? John the Baptist, what, down 20, 30 miles downhill, and then you've got to come back up in a lot of ways. Is that really what happened, that all Jerusalem went out to see John the Baptist? And what I want to suggest to you is no. And actually, let me just tell you, there's one person who didn't go down there, and there was a man that John records this guy that had been crippled for 38 years, and he sat by the pool at Bethesda there, and Jesus is going to come up to this guy and say, hey, the guy's going to say, hey, I can't get into the water fast enough, and Jesus is going to say, get up and walk, and the guy's going to get up and walk, go into the temple and stuff. So, but that guy had been crippled for 38 years. There's no way he went down to see John the Baptist and got baptized of him. So when it says all Judea went down to see John the Baptist, it's meaning all, the same way we mean that everybody went to the basketball game, man. Everybody was at this game, man. Everybody was there. When you say everybody, all Gordon College was at the basketball game, that's a hyperbole. It's an overstatement. Let me just define what a hyperbole is. A hyperbole is an overstatement for emphasis. And we do that all the time. Okay, that was a kind of a corny joke, okay? We do that all the time. Well, I really don't do hyperbole all the time, so that's an overstatement itself for emphasis. So you got to be careful with hyperboles. And what I'm going to suggest here is that Jesus teaches with hyperbole, in terms, not just with terms of all. Now you got to be careful with the hyperbole. When Paul says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, when Paul says all have sinned, does he mean every last person? Yeah, in that case, all means all. So what determines meaning? What determines the meaning of the word all, whether it means absolutely all, or whether it means in a hyperbolic sense, just most of the people were there? Context determines meaning. And that's one of the things I really try to push in this course. What does a word mean? You can't just take a word out of context and tell what it means. You've got to basically look at a word in its context. And so all sometimes will mean absolutely all, with no question. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. At other times, all Judea went down to John the Baptist. That's a hyperbole. It's an overstatement for emphasis. And so you've got to be careful with this. Now, let me just push this a little bit further.